Hi guys.
What's up? We're back with another episode of All Things Marriage.
Yes.
Again, we're your hosts, Derek
and Crystal Robinson. Welcome, guys.
And
it's been a whole week.
It's been a whole week. So this week we're going to be talking about
order of operations.
Cool beans. I promise you, it's not math.
My husband is a mathematician, so we kind of use that inspiration in naming this video, as well as how we're going to dive into the conversation, the topic today.
Right, but before we do, those of you who are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. If you see anything you like as we go on, you hear something you like, make sure to give us a thumbs up and drop a comment in the comment section. We really love to hear and see the responses.
And we don't want you to miss anything, guys. So hit that bell notification. So anytime we upload anything, Wednesdays, thought of the day, or whatever you may have it, you will get it. All right.
And with that being said, let's jump right into order of operations.
Right. So we named it again, order of operations. If you know math, if you remember math, we did PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. With multiplication and division, as well as subtraction and addition, you can interchange those depending on
the circumstance.
A lot of people don't know that was an actual argument on Facebook one time.
Right.
And I was just like, I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, like, do you multiply or divide first? Like, they're the same thing.
Right. And I think they switched it at one point, because it was just do it in this order, and then it was like, well, you can actually. It wasn't?
It was never.
Oh, well, I tried to help you guys.
Anyway, so we took that same concept and we applied it to relationships.
Right.
And the order in which you should prioritize your relationship, those who may be involved in the relationship, how to prioritize like your relationship dynamic. Right.
We talked about partnerships a couple weeks ago, and working together, becoming one, and that's kind of in depth more.
Influencers is the word I was looking for.
Okay. But yeah, so in our relationship, in marriage especially, and I would honestly say any relationship, because we have the belief that when you're dating to get married. Right. So you have certain things
or at least you should be.
Right. You should be. But I mean, a lot of people are straying away from marriage, but we're here to kind of help you get prepared and take a second look. Marriage is a beautiful thing. So in your relationships, you should be practicing certain things for marriage. You're supposed to be instilling in yourself, as well as in your partner, how your relationship should be ran, or should go, or should unfold. With the please excuse your dear Aunt Sally. Please excuse your dear Aunt Sally, because I don't have Aunt Sally. But anyway.
Oh my gosh! All right.
But with the order of operations, we look at how when situations come up, when we're making decisions, who do we consider? When do we consider? Their opinion, their thoughts, their desires, their wants in the relationship.
So, with that. Drum roll. Our order of operations is GSSCCO.
Okay.
Right. Again, GSSCCO.
Yes.
Or it's God, spouse, self.
Okay.
Children. Church, others.
Right. With spouse and self can be interchangeable.
Are like multiplication and division.
Right. And church and others can be
addition and subtraction. Right. So again, one more time, that's God, spouse, self, children, church, other. Right. If you have it caught on by now, this is going to be a little bit more religious than some of our other topics. It's going to come from a religious place.
Right.
But I mean, it is what it is.
Again, we warned you guys early on.
Right. Right. So, always, God first. God above everything else, right? And when we say God, now understand and notice that there is a place for God, and then there is a place for church. The two are not synonymous,
right?
Where you and I feel like that's where sometimes we get a little mixed up,
right?
Or we get a little, we get a little. I don't want to say confused. But
we put them together.
One. Yeah, we believe and we act as if I'm doing ministry related work, going to church. If you're a preacher, you're preaching, or whatever your role may be, that's me working and doing and giving to God.
Right.
Therefore, it goes before anything else, and that's not the case.
Right.
When we say, or when the Bible says that God comes before everything else. Now, because the Bible does say, if you seek after God or you come after Christ and you don't hate your mother, father, and your own life also, you cannot be his disciple. Of course, we know we're not supposed to hate people, but it's in terms of like the lifestyles and and the
place in your life,
and in the place
that he should still be above those people.
So we understand that yes, there is a place for ministry and there is a place for work, but your relationship with God is what goes above everything else, not necessarily the work in the church.
Because I actually shared a post the other day. If you guys are my friends on Facebook, you will see it says that my commitment to my spouse is rooted in my commitment to my God.
Right. So
if I can't be committed to God fully, if I cannot have a relationship with God, then there's going to be, I'm not going to say 9 times out of 10, but you're going to see issues with my commitment with my spouse.
Exactly. And it's through that connection with God. It's through that spiritual connectivity and that spiritual relationship that we learn to one, love ourselves, but love our spouse and appreciate and how to communicate effectively and perfectly with our significant others, right? It is that relationship with God that kind of dictates and molds all of your other relationships, and so it's supposed to be your number one relationship. That's supposed to be what comes first. Number 2, spouse.
Number 2 is spouse, because we should love selflessly. We should put our spouse above our wants and needs.
Right.
That does not mean our wants and needs, and we've said this before, is not important. But if I'm looking out for him and he's looking out for me, then we both get what we need.
Right, we're both covered.
Right. And if I'm doing all that I can to make sure that he feels supported, that he feels respected, that he feels loved and cherished, then I can in turn get what I need.
Right.
Because he's going to appreciate that I'm showing him this thing. So he's going to then provide, protect. He's going to encourage, uplift, all of these things.
Right.
It's a two-way street. We give 100 every time.
Right.
And if we do fall short, because we're human, then our partner sees it, because one, I'm looking to give him everything he needs. So therefore, if he falls short, I'm looking to give him the encouragement that he needs.
Right.
You know, that love that he needs to hear. You know, baby, it's all right. We gonna make it. That, you know, that I got your back. I still love you. I still reverence you as my husband, as my provider, as my protector. We can do this together. We can make it together.
And I like that you use the word reverence, because that's directly scripture. That's Ephesians, the 5th chapter, where it's explaining, or the Apostle Paul is talking about the relationship building aspect of spirituality, of Christianity, of being a follower of Christ. And in the 5th chapter, he tells the wife to submit. That word that people
we don't like that. We don't like that word.
But he tells the wife to submit to the husband as she would submit to Christ.
Yeah.
And tells the husband, and he also says to reverence your husband the way you would reverence the Lord, because that's the dynamic. And then it tells the husband to love and to honor the wife the same way one would love and honor God, because that's the relationship he's trying to. And the point is building that relationship structure. Yes, my wife is supposed to submit to me. That doesn't necessarily mean
I'm his slave.
Right, but it means that she understands the concept of essentially her decisions aren't her own decisions. Her decisions, what she chooses to say, do, etc.,
hang out with sometimes.
Exactly, it's all rooted in what would please me as her husband, what makes me look good as her husband. And so as the wife submitting her will to the will of the husband, she may want to live in California. But if the husband is just like, well, the better living situation for us is New York, then she's supposed to submit to that because that's her husband. On the flip side, the husband honors the wife, loves the wife, and says, I'm not going to force you into something that I know you don't like. I'm not, just because I'm the boss.
Right.
I'm gonna make you do something, because God doesn't make us do anything.
Yeah, we have free will.
God says, this is what I want. This is what I desire the best for you. And here's how I see you getting the best. This is what you have to do in order to achieve that.
Yep.
You make the decision. And so similarly, as the husband, it's my job to say, okay, well, yeah, I know I think New York is better, but your heart is in California. Let's see how we can make this work.
Yeah.
Maybe I can find a job situation that's similar to New York but works in Cali.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
because he's a provider. And,
exactly.
And at all costs, he's going to make sure that once we get to California, he doesn't have to worry about ifs, ands, and buts.
Right.
If, he doesn't have to worry about where my family's going to sleep. Because then I'm like, well, I wanted to move to California, but I thought you were supposed to, make sure, And so that caused strife, even though it was my desire to move to California.
Right.
And he was trying to appease me, I still have expectations for my husband to make sure that we're provided for when we get to California.
Right.
It's honestly like I'm loving Christ.
Right.
I'm submitting my request to God.
Right.
And then I'm praying, if he's going to give it to me, that he's going to make provisions for me not to be harmed when he gives me this thing, or when I walk into whatever the blessing is. Right.
And that leads us into our second S, which is self. And that is to say, even though you are prioritizing your spouse as the scripture dictates, you're not supposed to, and we've discussed this before, lose your sense of self. You are still supposed to take care of yourself. And again, and it goes back to that first letter, that God, that G in the order, make sure that your connection to God is stable. And and when there are issues and things arising, even though you are trying to make sure that your spouse has what they need, which with whatever regard that is, when something is not fitting your need, when your needs are lacking,
or getting starved
out, you're supposed to then say, hey, listen, I'm missing this thing, and not go outside of that spectrum, because at this point, there in the order of operations, there are only three components. There's God, there's the spouse, and there's the self. And so if there's an issue with your connection to God, you have to seek God. If there is an issue between your connection with your spouse or the needs of your spouse, then you're supposed to communicate with your spouse and with God.
Yep. And sometimes you need to, because order of operations,
right?
You need to
flip that, and it's
you need to communicate with God first,
right?
Especially if you're angry,
right?
Or you just don't know how you're gonna express yourself,
right?
You need to go and honestly check yourself first,
right?
And say, God, I don't understand this thing. You know, show me, give me understanding. I don't understand it because I'm trying to understand.
And that's what I was going to say next, because the third letter itself, if there's an issue within yourself internally, something that again, maybe it's not internal, maybe it is external, something that your spouse isn't providing, you're supposed to look inwardly and say, is this a problem that I'm creating, that I'm generating, that I can control, or is this external? And if it is external, then there's two others that you can consult with, God and your spouse. So at the point of it can, like you said, it can interchange which one is the priority depending on the given scenario of you versus your spouse. Is this something that you're missing or something your spouse is missing? Is this a need for one or the other? You can flip those. But at the point of God, self, spouse, or God, spouse, self, those are the only three that you're supposed to be really conferring with to make decisions regarding your relationship up to that point, right? Because those are the three important pieces: God, spouse, self. Right? So let's move to the next piece in the puzzle. The next operation,
which is children.
Those
babies.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to be talking a lot.
No, but you're fine. When children get involved into a situation, I don't want to say situation, but into the relationship, into the dynamic, people. I say people because we don't have children here, but because one day we will. We are human, and we love our babies unconditionally, and we want to provide for them, and we want to protect them, and all the things that you should.
Women especially. Women go into mother protector mode.
This is my baby, and I'm gonna do everything I can for my baby. And it's just like, that's right, fine. When your baby is in trouble, when your baby seems to be going down the wrong path, when you're raising them up in the way that they should go, yes, do all that you can for your baby. But baby, let me tell you, your spouse
has to
still comes before your child.
And I look at it in this way.
It seems real rude.
It seems really rude, right?
Because this baby can't fend for themselves.
Right. and I look at it like this. First and foremost, once the children are gone, assuming everything follows the normal pattern, once the children have all grown up, they've all moved out of the house, they've all gotten married themselves, have their own kids, all of that.
Yes.
You're still left with you, your spouse,
and God.
So you have to, even though the children have needs, even though there are aspects where your children have to become a priority, and you have to make sure they're okay. And again, the caveat to this is, if the children are in danger, and it, especially in the instance of it's the spouse that's creating the danger for the children, then of course you make sure you protect the child.
Right. But if my child is not being neglected, they have all their needs met. They have food, clothes, shelter. They feel safe and secure. If my spouse says we're going on a 3-4 day vacation without the children, I need you to figure out who we can get to watch them, babysit them while we're gone, because we need to refocus and show each other love and affection.
Right.
Guess what I got to do?
you got to figure something out.
Tiffany.
Right. Like, call up somebody, whoever, like, call up mama, grandma, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, god, cousin.
Who's
I don't
free?
know. Like, who's free? To keep these kids, because we have to take care of us.
Yeah.
And we were having a conversation with her sister, I believe it was, my in-laws, a couple years back. I think it was them, and we came across this same conversation, and I gave this analogy, I gave this scenario, and a lot of people probably won't understand it. As a matter of fact, drop in the comments your thoughts once I finish with this.
I'm gonna drop my thoughts too, guys.
But the analogy was, if you're on the edge of a cliff, and your spouse and your children are hanging off the edge of the cliff. It's spouse dangling and child dangling.
I remember this.
Whose life, and you can only save one life.
You've asked me this.
Whose life do you save? And the honest to God answer is, most people say, well, I gotta save my child.
That's so terrible.
And it sounds bad, but the honest answer is, you save the spouse. And this is why it's
we're not
so
going
important.
near any cliffs, guys. When we had children, no cliffs.
But here's the thing, and the aside from the biblical standpoint, the mindset is, you save the spouse because you can only save one life, but the two of you together can work.
Can reproduce.
No, not even reproduce. Yes, you can reproduce, but the two of you together can work, and there is a greater chance that both of you can save the child than if you save the child and now the spouse is gone completely.
That's true. That is true, but that is so hard.
It's hard.
It really hard. Maybe you should not give that example anymore.
That's the one. That is the one.
I can see people now shaking their head like, no. Now, see, if you got baby daddies and baby mamas, that may not be your decision, but
spouse or children.
I understand.
And of course, no one wants to be in that situation.
No,
that's not a realistic, normal happenstance. But the mindset is, you have to prioritize your relationship with your spouse and make sure that your spouse is okay. That is your responsibility.
Right.
It is the two of you together.
Right.
It's your combined responsibility to make sure that the children are okay.
Yeah.
But it's your singular responsibility to make sure your spouse is okay.
Because if if you're regularly having date nights once a week and or once a month, however you have it, and when you start having children, or I will say children because we're on children. If we have children and then the date nights get cut down, and they keep cutting down, especially when the kids get older and they need to go to basketball practice or soccer practice, and they got ballet recital. All of these things keep coming up, and you got play dates, and you're now at no date nights, and your spouse says, hey,
I need time.
We need to get back to having date nights, having deep conversations, planning for our future, because you're still planning for your future, even though you've reached the goal of having kids, and you're now preparing those children. You still have a future. As long as you have breath in your body, you have a future to plan for. So you have to say, well, either our kids can't pick up another activity,
they gotta drop something.
They have to either drop something, or we have to talk to some of those family members that keep asking us when we're having children, can you drop our child off? Maybe it's a routine thing. Can you do every other Thursday so we can make sure we have at least 2 date nights? There's always compromise. Sure, you can't have maybe you can't have date night every week, but you can compromise and say, we can have it 2 nights a week outside of the house, and maybe 2 nights out of the month you have it in the house, and we may have date night with the kids. Like you do a special activity other than just having regular dinner.
Yeah.
They may, you know, cook in the kitchen with you, but those needs of your spouse
have to be met. Exactly. So let's move to the next C,
which is the church.
Letter 5. Mm-hmm. And we may get a little flack for this, but
we love y'all saints.
We love the saints of God.
We're all one body.
However, and that's not to say that the church isn't important. Ministry isn't important.
It is, because this is a ministry.
Because this is ministry, it is, yeah. Right? Marriage is a ministry, right? Yeah. But notice that church comes after the children. Church comes after self-care. Church comes after spouse and your relationship with your spouse. Church comes after your relationship with God. Mm-hmm. A lot of times what I feel happens, and you know, I'm guilty of it myself sometimes. I'm sure all of us have been in this type of situation where you get so focused on the work that you're doing in the ministry. Right. Whether you're a preacher or a teacher, or whether you run Bible school, or you're an usher, you sing in the choir, whatever the case may be, musician, whatever, you get so wrapped up in the getting to rehearsals and making the meetings and planning the event and this and then the third, to we don't make time to actually study our Bible and to pray and talk to the God that we're preaching about, and to fast and consecrate ourselves and hear from the God that we're trying to convince the homeless man exists when we're out passing out food, you know, and we're giving out services. And so the reason that church falls so far down the list here is because ministry is important. But as we've discussed before, it starts at home. Mm-hmm. It starts with the family and getting that family dynamic right and proper and in alignment.
And want to add to that, because if we can get the family dynamic together, more than likely we have the church dynamic, the ministry dynamic set. Because if you study and look at the church body, the church ministry, compared to the family ministry, they parallel. And oftentimes the issues that you find in any given ministry, in any given church organization, whatever the case may be, are just the issues amongst the individual families magnified 100-fold. And I'll use this example. If you have a church congregation of about 500 members and roughly 100 families averaging 5 people apiece, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if each one of those 100 families understood this order of operations, and the individuals within a given family had their relationship with God in proper alignment, the parents involved in each individual house would learn how to communicate and deal with and keep each other as the priority next, you know, well, not next to, but behind God. Keep each other as a priority and understand how to stay healthy in their relationship, as well as how to keep their children in proper alignment and train their children and example that relationship to their children. When it came time for that household of 5 to get to the church and be involved in church, in ministry, that family wouldn't have a lot of issues, right? Because that family understands how to place people. That family understands how to prioritize people and how to prioritize works. And so when it came time to them working in the ministry, their work would always be, it wouldn't be perfect, but it would be in peace. Right. And so then if you take that household of 5
and each one of the 100 households of 5 did the same thing.
Yep.
When they came together, they would always operate in peace. They would always operate in understanding and in love, because they themselves are individually and as a household imbalanced. And so not imbalanced.
Balance.
Right. Not imbalanced, but in balance.
Yeah.
And so they can then be balanced with those surrounding them. And the ministry can grow and the ministry can flourish. And even beyond that, the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, the 7th chapter, says that when it comes to ministry work, and there's a lot of things that was being discussed in this particular chapter, but it even moves down to say when a spouse is going to, or when you're going to go into fasting, go into consecration, a period of fasting and praying, in which you're to refrain from all your earthly pleasures, whether it be sexual, whether it be, or intimate, whether it be just having fun, the relaxation, the date nights, all of those things kind of go away when you go into a point of consecration.
Right.
And so 1 Corinthians 7 says that even in doing that, which that's directly not even a church thing, that's a God connection. It says that you're not supposed to do that unless you confer with your spouse and you two are in agreement, and you're only supposed to do that for a short time, after which you both immediately come back together in partnership and in love to re-solidify yourselves. So it basically says, God says, hey, I want you to consecrate yourself. But the way you do that is you solidify yourself with your spouse first. Go into consecrate and agree on this. Go into consecration and then solidify yourself with your partner after the fact. So if God places that level of intent and importance on that spouse dynamic, on that household dynamic, of course he understands when it comes to ministry work that you can't minister to others unless your household is taken care of. And so your household has to come first.
As a matter of fact, it actually tells pastors, bishops, you need to rule your house well.
Right. You can't lead unless you rule.
That's a qualification.
Right. You're not even qualified for leadership unless if you don't have your home dynamic right.
And that doesn't mean that everybody else do what you tell them to do. That's you included.
Right.
You included in the family dynamic, doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Right. So church definitely has its place. Church is definitely important, but before church comes family.
Yep.
Right. And the final letter,
the spouse, self, and children.
Right.
Because remember, it can be church can be interchangeable with the other family members. Right. Which is the part that where
we're at now. Which is everybody else. Right.
So that's mom.
That's mom, dad, grandma,
in-laws,
sister, cousin, niece, nephew, work. Work, friends, extracurricular, anything that's outside of your household, and then outside of not the members of the church, but the work of ministry comes on the back end. Right. And because the work of ministry sometimes includes these people outside of the house, that's again the addition subtraction. They can be flip-flop where there may be a church service going on tonight, and I'm supposed to, be leading the praise team. Right. But the homeless man down the street is standing on the edge of the corner, one way or another, with a gun in his hand, about to shoot himself and somebody else. You don't lead, or at least you've been hearing him talk about this thing in passing. Or even if it's not something that drastic, he's just sitting on the corner. Right.
Or it could be a family member that is broke down on the side of the road. Right. And you could think of multiple people they could call, but they called
but
you.
they chose to call you. Right. And that's why I say with the homeless scenario, he doesn't even have to be doing anything. Right. He could just be sitting there.
Right.
Be late, misleading praise and worship to have that conversation with that homeless person. God is here. God hears you. He sees you.
Right. And it doesn't mean that you don't let your, musician
or whomever
leader, know that you're not going to be able to make it.
Right.
But you still do the work that God has given you, because he could tell you, don't go to this church service, and you could be like, what, Lord?
Or you don't even register that it's him telling you, you just chalk it up to you tired or you don't feel like it or whatever the case may be. And you miss the opportunity to actually pour into someone and bring a soul to Christ.
Yeah.
So
if we're at that top, if we're connected to God, if we're listening and following his instructions, all of these things will begin to line up into place if we seek him. Now, sometimes we'll read the Bible and different teachings and understanding passages and stuff that we've been taught down through the years is like, well, that doesn't mean that we don't have to do all of that. But if our hearts are to actually live this thing in the order of operation that he said for the family and for the church, then we're constantly going to him, God, give me instructions. Like, I don't understand what my husband is saying. I don't understand what my husband is doing. I believe it's this way. But if it will cause peace in our home, if it will cause me to understand something or you to come to an understanding, then my first goal is to go seek God for understanding. Even if I'm praying on myself, God, give me the words to say. If I can say anything to bring him to an understanding. If he can show me, or you can show me, rather, something that will bring me to an understanding to get to the point where he is, so that we can be in the proper alignment and order of operation, then do that. You know what I'm saying? You always consult God. You consult God, I would say, even if it's just you. Because we say it all the time, Lord, what would you have me to do this on this day, this morning? Who would you have me to speak to? Lead me, guide me. The same thing is in our marriage. God, what is it that my husband is trying to do? What is it my wife is trying to do? Help me to lead or to submit in the way that is pleasing to you, so that there can be peace in our home.
Yeah. So, and I guess that's it for it all.
Yeah, I mean,
it's because I was just kind of reflecting a little bit. I'm sorry, but yeah, it's a lot. It's kind of heavy, because when you start thinking and you start reflecting, you kind of start to see, okay, what areas am I falling short in? What areas am I doing well in? How can I improve myself? How can I utilize the order of operations to grow as a person?
Right, because I don't think a lot of people understand the severity of marriage. Marriage teaches you so much about yourself and about other people and about God.
Right.
I don't think, if it wasn't as heavy as it really is, I don't think he would have compared himself to the husband.
To a husband coming for his bride.
Right. I don't think he would have done that. There's a connection that so many of us are missing. Like, we're missing the big point of God. What are you trying to show me?
Yeah. Through this marriage. Relationship.
Right. Because it's something to be learned. People say, marriage is beautiful, but we just say it like it's, hey, how you doing? I'm good. And we passing. Yeah. And it's just like, well, no. let me understand, how is marriage beautiful? It's not just about being able to be intimate with one another, or having children. It's not just those things. Those are beautiful aspects of it,
right?
You know, but there's so much more. We spoke, you know, that is a ministry. Yeah. It literally, it's a ministry.
It's the honesty, it's the key to unlocking the kingdom of Christ.
It is. Because you can figure out how to deal with grief. You can understand how to unconditionally love somebody.
Right.
Forgiveness. All of these things are wrapped up in marriage.
Right. But that being said, we're not gonna keep holding you guys.
Yeah, because it's about to get real in here.
we can actually come back with this a little bit later and kind of do a deeper dive, if you will.
Yeah.
But again, let us know what you guys think in the comments about the order of operations. Remember, God, spouse, self, children, church, and others.
Yeah.
Until next time, this has been All Things Marriage.
Bye.
We'll catch you later.